This was Eric playing t-ball at probably age 3. Remember Disney?
Yeah, I remember Disney World. 5 years old.
Were you? Yeah, you were 5 years old.
I looked so silly back then.
You were having a good time. When he was born, things seemed to have started out pretty normal, pretty healthy. It really didn't take long for us to get a sense that something was not quite right. He had trouble kind of just keeping up with other kids his age and doing the same activities that the other kids would do. We finally got to a doctor when he was 5. They said, well, let's run some blood tests, rule some things out. Well, unfortunately, they ruled some things in, and that was that he did have Duchenne. I thought, okay, well, what do we do? What medicine does he take? And the doctor's like, well, there's not much you can do. You're just in shock, I guess, absolute shock. Like, but what do we do? And just figuring out what that meant for him and for the family and for us as parents.
Timothy was diagnosed with Duchenne at the age of 2. Quickly, we found out what the disease was. A couple years later in our journey, our second son, Andrew, was born. We had him tested at the age of 5, and he tested positive as well. So both of them have the same disease. When we were first handed the diagnosis, we were told, go home and hug your child. There's nothing that we can do. There's no medicines. There's really no treatment or cure to save their lives. This is a death sentence. We were really in despair.
Early on, he could still walk on his own. He could still do daily living tasks, getting dressed and that kind of thing. Over time, that got harder and harder. He mostly has to use the wheelchair to get around, so he's lost his mobility to walk. His loss of the upper body strength, his arms, it's harder for him to lift his arms, harder for him to do anything using his hands. It's like carrying around a heavy weight that's just heartbreaking every day, and it just gets heavier and heavier and heavier.
Eric has been a special person in our lives. Eric was diagnosed shortly after Timothy was diagnosed, and we got connected with them.
I can't see.
The boys developed a friendship, and it's been a nice friendship through the years.
When Mom told me that there were other kids with my same condition, and we just sort of bonded after a while.
Yeah, we became friends ever since after that.
Yeah.
A cure would just mean everything. It would mean life. It would mean a future. It would mean seeing Eric be able to do all the things that he wants to do to have a healthy, normal life.
I'd like to do art, and I'd like to get into game development.
I like weather. I like to go to the park and play baseball. We do pray for some kind of cure to this, you know. That's all you can do is pray.
Duchenne is a genetic mutation that these boys are born with. There are roughly 300,000, primarily boys, that have the effects of the disease. Their bodies are not able to retain a muscle protein that it needs, and that causes the muscle tissue all throughout the exoskeletal system to break down. Ultimately, the hearts deteriorate and succumb and stop working. The focus that we have spent over the last 20 years as CureDuchenne has been to raising money to promote things from theory to clinical reality. Early on, we raised $100,000 for research. It was $100,000, and that first $100,000 we invested with a gentleman who was studying gene therapy. Dr. Kevin Flanagan was another beneficiary of a $500,000 grant from Champions of CureDuchenne. He had an idea that would, in theory, be able to allow the child to produce dystrophin protein for their bodies, which would ultimately give them, if you will, a simulated cure.
15 years ago, 20 years ago, when I first started seeing patients with Duchenne muscular dystrophy, I couldn't look a parent in the eye and tell them that there was something clearly on the horizon that was going to make a meaningful difference in their child's life. And now we're at a place where research has advanced extraordinarily, where we have multiple potential treatments that are really going to change the trajectory of this disease for many boys. There has been incredible movement in this, and there's more great things to come. And this is where the support, the money from CureDuchenne was really critical.
So what started 13, 14 years ago with the first Champions investment has now blossomed into multiple companies looking to get involved to try to find the cure.
For over 13 years, I have been so glad to see how generous donors have been. And it means the world to myself, to Eric, to our family, and to all the other boys that suffer from this disease. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for your donations and your generosity.
From the Ravels and all four of us, we simply say thank you and we love you.
I may be disabled, but I'm not done.